Hey everybody, my throat's doing a lot better, and I've got little girls here. Hi Penny. Hi Zoe. It's weird because I'm reversed. You've probably seen a lot of creators have issues with that. It's never the hand you think is going to come up. Anyway, we're not here to talk about my throat, my dogs, or my hand. We are here to talk about number 113 in the Criterion Collection, Big Deal on Madonna Street, directed by Mario Monicelli, from Italy, from 1958. This movie is actually quite a bit of fun. It's a comedy heist film, although it's being called a comedy caper film, but I feel like heist gives you a better idea of what we're talking about here. It is how much of this plot to do? A guy goes to prison. While he's in prison, he learns of this great opportunity to break into a jewelry store's like vault because it butts up against an apartment. So it would be, he discovers how easy it would be. You just have to get through one thin wall and you're in the money. And he tells some of his buddies on the outside, he's got this great plan. They just got to get him out. Getting him out doesn't work so well, and in fact ends up getting one guy stuck in there with him who tricks the guy into telling him the entire plan before he gets released like a few days later. So now there's a gang of people on the outside who are putting together this heist, and the guy on the inside who's really upset that they're doing his heist without him. He eventually gets out. Everything about this heist goes wrong. Like every step of the planning. Okay, it's like Ocean's 11 but idiots is kind of the theme we're going for here. I'm going to move this mic a little bit. There we go. So Ocean 11 but for idiots. I will give you just one example because I don't want to spoil too much. This is a fun film. You should go check it out. So there's a scene where the guy who was originally in jail, I guess he's abandoned the idea of doing this big heist and he's just going to do little jobs on his own. So he goes to hold up the pawn shop. He's hoping, I think, to maybe rob it of all the stuff before the people get in there to rob it. So he goes into the pawn shop and he's got a newspaper draped over one arm, and underneath the newspaper he's holding a gun. He goes in late at night. He makes sure he's the only customer in there right before closing, and he goes up to the clerk and then whoosh, do you know what this is? Without missing a beat, the clerk just reaches out, picks up the gun, examines it, tells him, oh, this is a really old piece, and, they're not super reliable, and this, that, and the other. I can offer you, like, $50 for it. Meanwhile, the expression on the guy's face is priceless, because he's trying to rob this guy, and the guy's like, your gun's not that great, $50. So he snatches the gun back and leaves. This is the kind of things aren't going right that kind of typifies this movie. Basically, every step of the organization just falls apart. That's the kind of comedy you're looking at. I think it's very well done. One of the guys on the crew is like a big, muscular, strong guy, and he's a professional boxer, except if you punch him anywhere on the face, he's going down immediately. He can take body blows all day long, but one, and he's out like a light, which is pretty funny too. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too many more of the scenes. One other interesting thing I thought about this film is 1958 is later than I would have expected to see this, but it has occasional interstitial cards. What are interstitial cards? Back in the day of silent movies, when people couldn't talk, we still had to communicate some amount of plot. Now, obviously, they were writing those movies to show as much as possible because the actors couldn't talk. But that really limits your storytelling ability. So, what you do is you put up interstitial cards. Once I've said it, once I explain it, you'll be able to picture it in your head pretty well. Clue used them at the end most recently, I guess. They're not used very much anymore because they're not necessary. But it's things like as they cut to another scene, a card would come up and say, meanwhile, Jim was breaking into the police office. And then you will see Jim doing that. Or even they used it in place of dialogue. Well, honey, that will never work. You see them And then the interstitial pops up that says, well, honey, this will never work. This movie, despite being a talkie, it's black and white, but it has sound. In 1958, like, I don't know. I need to recalculate or recalibrate my brain on when black and white films were out of vogue. I would have thought 58 was a little late for black and white, but it still had some interstitial, maybe like 4 or 5 cards throughout the whole thing that just like, meanwhile, back on the street, they're not super helpful. They're not necessary because we can talk and we can see and all of these things. They're completely unnecessary. I have to assume this was just like a growing period in Italy where like they were starting to move away from interstitial cards, because for a little while, obviously, as you're adapting to new technology, you're going to keep using what worked. So there was a time, like this movie, where some talkies had some interstitials, even though you don't need them anymore. And the problem with interstitial cards is they absolutely break any immersion you might have into the genre, right? You're watching this story about these characters, and then everything stops and a card flashes up and talks. It would be like if the title crawl from Star Wars happened broken up throughout the film, right? Imagine how that would, in the middle of a scene, you're just like, oh, okay, I gotta read for a little bit. Okay, now we're back into the action, or we're back into these characters. It's a forcible reminder that you are watching a movie instead of just experiencing the film itself. Interstitials were necessary for silent films. You can use them interestingly. You can... Anything that I ever say is like a rule or a guideline, you can break if you have a reason for doing so, if you can do it interestingly. And if you come up with a way, an example is voiceover narration is generally frowned upon. You're not supposed to use it. It's lazy film writing. Audiences don't need it. It breaks immersion. You don't need an omnipresent narrator going, and Sally woke up that day not knowing what was in store for her. You just have Sally wake up and follow her. You don't need the voiceover narration, but you could do it interestingly. I've long had the idea of writing a film that was just like a rom-com, standard, full, nothing special romantic comedy, except it has a voiceover narrator and it's his first day doing that job. And so he's constantly tweaking the movie, trying to make it more interesting. And then you would probably have to have like the voiceover talent correcting him or stopping him, because it would be like, and so they talked the whole night. It's actually kind of boring if they talk the whole night. What if zombies broke in? And then you see zombies come in, and the editor would be like, whoa, 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 it's not that kind of film. Dial it back. And you rewind and the zombies don't come in. You could play with it and have fun with it and be interesting, right? The interstitials here aren't being played with. They aren't fun. They're not building blocks. They're a vestige, right? They are left over from the growing pains of getting away from silent films and into talkies. It is interesting because it really kind of marks the transition period of when this film was made, at least for the director. That's the other thing I just wanted to talk about. Anyway, I've been going on for a little bit, and talking about things that aren't really related. I've just missed you. That's all. So, should you watch this film? I think so. I love a good comedy, and it feels like we're making less and less comedies these days. And we add comedic elements to films, but we have very few pure comedies. This is a heist comedy, and it's very good. You should check it out. Apparently, there are 2 sequels, and I don't know if they're in their Criterion collection. I don't think they are, but I do think I'm going to have to track them down, because they sound like a good time. And in case you are curious, the follow-up sequel, it reunites the entire cast. The Italian title I can't begin to pronounce, but it's called Fiasco in Milan, or Hold Up alla Milanese, which is still not the Italian title, which is long. And then Another one released in 1985. So the first movie came out in 58, the sequel in 59, and then the next sequel in 85 is called Big Deal After 20 Years in English. Sometimes Big Deal on Madonna Street 20 years later. Also, the Russo brothers did an American remake of this film called Welcome to Collinwood in 2002. There's also a 1984 remake of this movie in America set in San Francisco called Crackers by Louis Malle. I don't know anything about either one of those, but if like foreign films you absolutely despise, maybe try Welcome to Collinville, because this is, or Collinwood, this is a fun concept executed well. I don't know if Welcome to Collinwood would do as well, but Anthony, the Russo brothers tend to do good work. So, there we are. Next time, we will talk about number 114, My Man Godfrey, directed by Gregory LaCava from the United States from 1936. And my voice, I can feel, is starting to go on me. So, thank you as always for being part of this journey. I will see you soon-ish.